Welcome to the RavenFist Studio podcast. In this podcast, we're taking a little bit of a different turn. This is not going to be a discussion of video games or any analysis or anything like that. Instead, we want to do something that we've said we were going to do all along, which is produce some content about the actual work of being an independent game studio. So we think that part of our audience out there will connect with us from that perspective of people who want to make video games or trying to make video games and kind of build a career and a life that way. And so we can talk about our experiences that we've had, and people might find common ground in what they've gone through. They might find inspiration. They might find some mistakes that they can avoid because we made them first. So that's kind of the idea that we're going for here. And this podcast is really the first effort we've put towards that. So we're going to record this. We're going to see how it goes, and hopefully it will find an audience and people will think there's some value here. So to kick this off, I want to hear who is with me. Who's to my left?
Stacy.
And then across from me?
And Matt.
All right, so the big three are here, the only employees of RavenFist Studios, but that's okay. And I also want to hear from each of you, what is your perception of the history of RavenFist? Like, from your eyes, from your seat, where you saw it, how did this start and how did this come about?
Me first?
I don't know.
Well, I think that for me it kind of was a us just kicking around ideas and going, hey, we should do a video game, and everybody walking away going, nah, we won't have time, and it just kind of kept coming back up, and then I think we just all went one day, well, hey, why don't we? And I mean, we've got the skills and we've got the background, various backgrounds and different things it takes to get it done, and we're a pretty good group at being able to either figure something out or at least pull it off somehow. So I think that's kind of where I think it came from.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Because, how many ideas have we floated amongst ourselves?
The Dono Boat, man. Dono Boat.
Yeah, Dono Boat.
Millions
of ideas that end in, well, it'd be nice if we did that. We'd probably, be millionaires by the time we were done. But, you laugh it off, and it goes into the archives of things that you never did. A lot of them were those kind of crazy ideas that just might work. And I don't know if the video game is one of those exactly. I think at the time when it first came up, I have always been interested in video games, and even as a kid was like, oh, that'd be cool to, develop video games as a career, or, kind of combine that, oh, this is what I love with what I do kind of thing. But, back in those days, there really wasn't a lot of quote-unquote indie, studios or room for that kind of thing. It was all the bigger publishers, and well, if you want to work in video games, you better be on a coast somewhere. But when this kind of kept coming up just between us, we kind of went and did the research and found out that, oh man, there's obviously indie studios had been popping up for quite some time, but just the amount of accessibility, the software out there that makes it possible to do this just on your own. It was like, oh man, we actually can do this. And I mean, at least for me personally, I felt like, just being at the job that I'm at now, it's like we were looking for something. And I think we've clarified it more as we got along, but at the time it was just kind of like, what would be something we could do to kind of fill that gap? Because we just weren't having a whole lot of fun. And so that's how it started. It's just that hobby. It's like, all right, let's make a game. Let's, even if it takes us 5 years and it makes 2 cents, let's make a game. It'll be ours, and we'll have it out there, and we'll have done it, and at least we'll think it's cool. But that's kind of how it started, and I know it's evolved quite a bit even since then. But that's my take on the history, I guess.
Okay, so I'm going to add a few things to what you guys have shared, and you're 100% right. All of those things happened, and that's exactly true. From my perspective, I'm going to take us back even farther. Okay, so we all work for the same company, and I have worked for the company the longest. I'm coming up on my 20th anniversary here. Matt has 10.
Man, you're old.
I know.
Let's see. Yeah, 10.
So Matt's been here 10 years, and Stacy?
4.
4 years. Okay, so even prior to Stacy working here, Matt was a big video game guy. We bonded over that early. We became fast friends. And even before Stacy started working here, we were working, at that time, we were in the same department. And I floated an idea at that point because my thought was, wouldn't it be cool to make a Super Nintendo game, like an actual, like one that ran on a cartridge, ran on the hardware? And I was really inspired by Pure Solar, which was a game that they made for the Sega Genesis. And just suddenly there was like, oh, there's a brand new Sega Genesis game. I was like, wow, how cool is that? And so I thought, well, since this is old technology, obviously this is going to be super easy to make a game for. And so I went to Matt and I said, hey, you have coding experience. That's what he gets paid to do. So can you take that coding experience and can you turn that into game development? And Matt was like, no. This is so different.
It's slightly different than what we do here.
There's no way. My skills don't cross that. There's no crossover there. I can't learn it. No. And so I was like, nah, okay, well, that would have been fun. So I'm going to back up even further and share a little bit about my experiences to kind of inform this story. So out of the group, I have always tried to achieve something, and I have never achieved anything. So in my drawer at home, I have a complete novel that is written and unpublished. I made an independent film that was picked up for distribution and went nowhere. And so all of these efforts that I have made to try to better myself, to try to get a career in some sort of creative endeavor has not come to fruition. And so we started talking about doing a game, and this time, the future has arrived, so to speak, and Matt has a change of heart or a change of skill or whatever it was, and the idea of doing a video game, suddenly Matt's like, yeah, I think we could do that. And as Stacy mentioned, we kind of just were like, nah, it's going to take too long, and who knows, and it probably won't do anything. And Stacy, I remember you, I don't know, a week later, a couple of days later, something like that, coming back and saying that you told your wife about this idea. And she said, well, you can either work for 4 years and have a game, or you can work for 4 years and have nothing. And you brought that idea to us, and we were all kind of like, oh, that's profound. Wow. Okay, well, maybe. And so we actually started down that path, and the game idea we were working on that point, we thought, okay, this is probably going to take 4 years to make. And Matt, you were adamant that this is not a career plan. This is not a way to get out of our 9-to-5s. This is just for fun, and I don't want to hear any person say that we're going to make any money at this at all. We're not going to start a studio. This is just a hobby. This is just for fun. And you became...
I tried to be the realist. I tried, and it didn't work.
And where are you now?
Now I'm banking on it.
And you were the one that turned the fastest. Like, I was holding strong because I had done this before.
Okay, well, that's true. That's true. I think we have my wife to thank for that one, because she went back to school for her business degree, and just, as she's learning her things, and I'm hearing the videos and kind of learning along with her, suddenly, going from the mindset of like, the only people that can actually start a business of their own already have money, to, if you don't like where you're at, either change it, and if you can't change it, make your own. And you can. And then again, after doing it, it's like, oh, and it was just like, well, crap, we could do this. I mean, yeah, it's not going to be easy. The chance of success is really pretty small, but enough effort, enough time, and then looking at the three of us and what skills that we bring, I mean, we've got the main core skills that you need to make a game, and the fact that we all came together in the same place, the same department at the same time, and we all feel the same way. I mean, to me, that's something. That's more than coincidence. And Yeah, so it just, you're right. It did not take long before I'm like, heck with this hobby thing. This would be something that we would all love. And again, what you love, what you do, turning that into one thing, I mean, that is everybody's dream.
Yeah.
Because then you don't even have a job at that time. But anyway.
Absolutely. And so that's kind of the genesis of RavenFist. That's where we started. So then with that new outlook, we said, oh, well, this game that we're looking at that's going to take 4 years to create, we're biting off more than we can chew at this point. And we started to look at the tools, and we started to put time into developing that 4-year game. And we're like, wow, we really want to be able to tell this story, but we're not there as creatives yet. So we kind of backburnered that 4-year game, and we started developing a different game. And the idea was simple 2D platformer. That's what we're going to make. We're not going to push the envelope. We're not going to try anything new. And we came up with a mechanic that I'm not going to share now, because that game will see the light of day somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
But we came up with a mechanic that I believe is completely unique in all of video gamedom. And we started working on that. And as we started working on it, suddenly it grew into, well, now this is going to be a 2-year project. And then it grew, well, now this might be a 3-year project. And then it was like, okay, well, hold on, time out.
and everybody's going to think scope creep, and you gotta lock that down. But man, whenever we got to it, we're like, no, this is what the game needs to be.
Right, because our goal is not to release something that we just kind of threw half of our hearts into. I mean...
Yeah, I think, not to cut you off, Chris, but I think because we are doing this first and foremost as kind of a labor of love, none of us want to put something out there that we're not 100% behind, and really, not that we figure it'll be perfect when it launches. We know that there will be things that we probably need to change or maybe would have done a little differently, but, I know we all want to endorse what we're doing and be proud of it and give people something that will hopefully, add a little bit to their lives. I mean, at least for a short window.
We're not expecting that we're going to release the next Half-Life. That's not in our purview. That's not what we're trying to accomplish. We did the math and projected that if we could sell 50,000 units, we could fund our studio full-time for 2 years.
And I think that's the important part, is that while all the stories, I mean, Stardew Valley and Hyper Light Drifter, these games that were made by one-man teams or very small teams, and they're pulling in loads and loads of money, and that's awesome. I mean, those are so inspiring. But to expect that is probably foolish.
Those people have done the equivalent of win the lottery.
Oh yeah, exactly. And so the important point is that the 50,000 copies, like that's achievable. This is not like a moonshot type thing. I mean, it's like, that's something that's feels doable.
Exactly. And you achieve that goal, you're funded for 2 years, then you've got a 2-year window to make something that sells another 50,000 copies. You're funded for another 2 years. You just keep that ball rolling. And if at some point you sell more than 50,000 copies, then fantastic. That just means you've got a bigger cushion to keep the ball rolling. Because our goal is not to become overnight billionaires. The goal is to make this a sustainable career where we can feed our families off of game development.
Yes, and really truly enjoy what we do.
Right.
Because I mean, I know we all have video games kind of have that place in our life of, I don't know, just it's a hobby, but it's also it allows you to, I don't know if escape is the right word, but kind of recharge yourself.
Well, I think it's it can be a form of digital therapy. I think that it is that. I think escape is kind of a good thing because, you immerse yourself in that experience, and at least for that little bit of time, the grind of the day and, whatever your kids may have going on or whatever just kind of seems to subside. So for me, it is very therapeutic.
Yeah.
And I think that, for me, that's one of the things that I want to give somebody else that experience. And I hope, of course, I'd love for us to be successful and sell millions of copies. But the main thing that for me is I want to do something where we have a chance to actually honestly express ourselves and do what we want to do to make other people happy and just, kind of pass on a good vibe and have something out there that we all know, hey, we did this, and we're giving people a little bit of something.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it just, that moment where you get to kind of release the stress of the day, and because I mean, the world is very go, go, go now, and having that time just to sit down and enjoy something is awesome, especially when you get to include, family and friends. But not only that, but I mean, I just feel like games are, when done properly, they are pretty much the best medium for storytelling. I mean, I don't know, you could argue that books maybe are, but it's just hard to beat a good game.
Yeah, there's something about, I mean, about the, being immersed in it, and actually, you can get that way with a book to a sense, but when you're playing a video games, a lot of times you're immersed in it, and there is, everybody's had that game where they've got the jump scare or something going on where you're actually, you forget that that's a digital thing on that screen, and it actually kind of becomes you.
Matt, you said a phrase that I thought was very interesting, that the world is go, go, go. And so without delving into our personal lives any deeper than we want to, I'll say that all three of us are married. All three of us have 3 kids, and they're all roughly the same age. So, the 3 of us coming from completely disparate backgrounds and then coming together here and being so similar is kind of crazy. So with that responsibility, having 3 kids, having a wife, having a 9-to-5 job that you have to come to 5 days a week and do, from you guys' perspective, how do you find time and creative energy to put time into RavenFist?
At times it is a struggle, but I think it's like anything. Once you get to doing it, I know for me, it's kind of like a snowball effect, and once you get into it and you start. It's immersive almost. I mean, being that I'm kind of doing the creative side of things, it turns into a very similar experience to video games, because I get into the art and I'm starting to create things, and there is just a gear that you kind of hit into in a mode, and the challenge is finding that time where the chaos of 9 to 5 and everything doesn't kind of take over that. And I think all of us know that each of us are going to have things that come up. And I think we all that's the beauty of what we're doing, is we know we're all committed, but we know there's going to be times that one of us might be down for a couple of weeks, and we know that person's going to come back and pick them up, because we're all doing this out of love for the medium, and really, I think the fact that we're all, like Chris said, I think all of us know that, because I feel so much the same way he does. I mean, I've tried a lot of different businesses, and to varying degrees of success, and most of them not extremely successful. But the thing is, every time you fail, you figured out a way not to, just don't repeat the mistakes. So, I think we have a lot of that going in, but it is challenging. And I mean, I think we're always, even when we're at the, full-fledged design studio and kind of, that being our primary source of income, I think we all still realize that family's going to come first.
I agree. I don't want to come off as negative, but I mean, for me, this whole experience has changed the 9-to-5 experience, if that makes sense. So before, I've worked at the same job for 10 years, basically. It's not changed a whole lot. Managers have changed, teams have changed, but the job itself fairly basically the same. And so, as we're kind of exploring these different things, and how I was saying before, how something was just kind of missing, part of what's missing is the 9 to 5 was not fulfilling. It's a corporate job, and we all know corporate America, so I don't need to go into all the, nitty gritty of that. But whenever we started doing the video game stuff and researching that, and especially whenever I started, coding, actually, putting code down and making, things happen and learning how that works and kind of wrapping my head around that, it was just, it was so joyful. It was like, oh my gosh, I have been missing this. Like, this is what I want to do. And the kind of unfortunate side effect of that is it has made the 9 to 5 grueling. I mean, I will be real with you. It is an intense struggle but I mean, it's a huge challenge to keep up that front, because you can't just quit your job. We have families. You've got people that are relying on you. It's not a matter of finding a different job, because you're going to be in the same boat. What you want to do is make games. And unfortunately, making games is something that you make nothing. There is zero income until you actually are done with the first game. And even then, you may not see much for that. So, I mean, that's been my experience, is just, discovering the love for making video games, and at the same time discovering that really kind of eschews everything else career-wise. I just, the interest level has dropped severely in the 9 to 5, and so it becomes very difficult to do that, and then to have energy by the time you because it takes more energy to complete that 9 to 5 job now, and so by the time you're done, I mean, you can have a severe problem in motivation, just working on something that you love, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I guess that's just where, discipline comes in, and having the three of us, to kind of lean on whenever we have those times of just not feeling like working on it, or, just not feeling it. In general, we've kind of got each other to bring each other up as those times come along. So yeah, it's definitely been a crazy ride, and we're just starting still. So I'm excited to see where it goes, but it definitely is not an easy thing. On paper it can look, oh, we can do this, but when you actually get to it, I mean, there's discipline. You gotta just buckle down sometimes, but like Stacy said, most of the time, once you start doing it, once you get into it, you're good. You find that motivation again. It's just sometimes getting over that hump.
So let's say the first game releases, and when you want to say they should expect that, like Q1, Q2 next year,
that's
of 2019.
That's our hope.
Okay, so that's what we're aiming for.
Because we haven't talked much about the first game, and
no, and I don't know that we're ready.
Scale.
I don't know that we're ready. So, but
that's
we'll talk
coming
about
along
that soon.
nicely.
It is. So Q1, Q2 of 2019, we're looking at releasing the first game. And we don't know that this will fund the studio. We don't know what'll happen. Let's say we release that first game and it sells one copy.
That'll be the one that I buy.
It probably will be. And you'll be like, Stacy, Chris, you didn't even buy it? Come on. But what do you do next? What's the next step?
Try again, or figure out what's wrong. Is there something wrong with what we put out there? But there is the one guarantee that I think we have in this is that if we continue to do this, we're doing something we love. And if you love what you're doing and you stick to it, eventually success is going to be there. And I think all of us have, there's an excited side to us that all of us are going, man, I hope I sell 1 million copies. I think there's a realistic side of us that go, we may sell 10.
Mm-hmm.
we don't know. I think we don't know. I just think you can't let the unknown be what dictates what you're doing, because if you do that, we never know what's going to happen, and nothing will ever happen if you're afraid of failing. And I've gotten pretty good at failing. So I'm not not afraid to take a shot at something that we may need to adapt, and we may need to change. And I'm hopeful we come out the gate and have enough success that we can transition. And I think for me, I'm looking at transitions. I don't see us being the next EA or anything like that. I'm not thinking we're going there, but I think the transition for us is, can we maybe decide to work remote at home and run the studio that way or something, and then transition to the next phase, which is, an actual brick and mortar building. So, I think if my expectations at this point is we're going to put something out there, and we're going to put the best thing out there we can.
Yeah. Yep. I have the attitude that we will fail way often. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, look at life. I mean, that's just, so a lot of people are scared of failure. I mean, you guys spoke to it of your previous endeavors, and you fail, and you either, you can do two things with it, and one of those things is looking at it and getting smarter and learning from it, and then you keep going. And that's exactly what we do here is, that didn't work. Well, why? Did we not hit the right market? Did we not polish it? And I mean, you figure those things out, and so then the next game gets better, and the next game gets better, and you never know. You never know if one of those will hit, tickle somebody's fancy, and then all of a sudden, that one was successful. So you just keep building, and you keep getting better. I mean, you can't have the illusion that your first game is going to be amazing, because quite frankly, it's probably not.
Well, for every Stardew Valley, there's hundreds of thousands of games that pale in comparison.
Absolutely.
And I think the biggest thing for me is, am I afraid to fail? Yeah, but I'm honestly more afraid to not try. I mean, that scares me worse than anything. I mean, we may fail, but at least I'm going to try and be willing to risk failing, instead of sitting back and going, if I try that, it's not going to work anyway, so I'm not even going to start.
Yep. And I mean, I feel like you got to do your due diligence. I mean, you got to, as much as we all want to make games that we love, which, I mean, that is the first step, you also have to look at, if you're trying to make a studio, money is part of it. Yeah. So is this a game that other people want? Is there even a market for this? I mean, is anyone going to care? What are we? Who are we trying to release this for? While at the same time, this is not a cash making business. That's not our focus. So you kind of combine those two things, and you make them work together, and and that way you're making something you love and that you think other people will enjoy, and at the same time enabling yourself to keep doing that. And I think that's all the three of us are looking for. We're not looking, to really change much as far as lifestyle. It's more just
sustainability.
Yeah, because really I'm ready to get out of the 9 to 5 and start doing what I really want to do.
9 to 5.
Yeah, exactly. It'll probably be more than 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I have no problem with that. But being able to expend that energy on something that you care deeply for, as opposed to something that you have to really try to give a crap about, that is a huge difference. I mean, that is, for me, that's what it's about. I mean, you can do that, you're good to go.
I feel that this is the appropriate time to tell you guys that I only work 4 hours a day. I'm sorry.
We know.
Much?
It's okay.
So I wanted to draw this to a close, but I want to talk about one more thing before we separate here today. Matt, you mentioned earlier this idea that when most people look at entrepreneurship and look at starting a business, then the roadblock is always money. It's like, well, obviously people who are self-sufficient, they have the resources to go out there and start something, and they have the time and the energy to build a business and be successful. So I want to give people an idea who might be listening how much we've invested to start this studio and to start building a game. So with the first game idea we had, we identified Game Maker as the engine we wanted to use. So we had an initial $100 investment in Game Maker that we split 3 ways so that Matt could have Game Maker and start using it. and then that was it. We were off and running because we already owned PCs, so we could install the software, and so that was not a startup cost. So for $100, we started the process of making a game. Then Matt decides Unity is the way to go, and so it's like, well, we just lit that $100 on fire. So we switched to the Unity engine. And then for the game we're currently working on, we put $150 into assets. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we're at $250 to be a functioning studio making a game. Mm-hmm. And then to do some of this ancillary material, the podcasts, the YouTube videos, the webpage, that took a little of investment. So I'm going to say that from start to finish, even with the mistakes we made of starting initially with Game Maker and then deciding to go elsewhere, that for less than $700, that's all we've invested into this.
Yeah, because I've picked up a couple of programs, but I think I've spent maybe $50. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, is $700 something to sneeze at? No, absolutely not. But we're not talking about like, oh, well, I borrowed $100,000 from my uncle and started a game studio. We're not in that situation. And so we've got it now to where we have the tools at our disposal. And I give Matt a hard time about switching to Unity, but it really was a good choice. And the good thing about Unity is Unity is going to carry us to the foreseeable future.
Well, yeah, and that was really the idea was, do we want to invest all this time and kind of learning Game Maker only to have to switch, I mean, who knows how long. Maybe we would have gone several years with Game Maker. But ultimately, Game Maker does not handle 3D, where Unity does both, and it would be something that we could use basically for the foreseeable future. So
for the foreseeable future, we have all of the tools we need to make a game. And the only thing we're investing above that initial $700 is time.
Sweat equity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the investment we've done in this.
So for anybody out there who's saying, oh, I can't possibly get the money together to make a game, let me save you $100, skip Game Maker, go straight to Unity.
Well...
Okay, maybe that's too far.
Pick the one that's right for you.
Pick the one that's right for you. And maybe pick the one that's right for you, hold off a couple of weeks, and then decide if you should order it. But my point is that for an amount of money that anybody who is serious could get a hold of, you can be functional. You can be up and running.
Well, and don't kill yourself with the expectations. Don't expect to land on Steam or Switch and be a top 10 seller. Don't think about that. Just, commit yourself to building the game, enjoying the game, enjoy building it, and build the best thing you can, and love what you're doing, and the rest will come, guys. Just do that, take care of that, and everything else will follow.
Yep. Don't be afraid to take the leap. Because it's important. It is. You spend a lot of time at work, a lot of your life at work, so that is something you should not settle with. You find that you love doing this kind of thing, then you make it happen. Like we've said, it's not a huge investment up front. You're not looking at thousands of dollars or retail space or anything like that. It's like you can start this and then just kind of like what you said, Stacy. Just you'll get lots of advice if you do the research. But I would suggest pick a game that you would like to play and start making it. Don't think you're going to make a AAA, Skyrim, from your first go. But if that's something you like, scale it down a little bit and chunk it up. Get one part of it done, see how that works, and then get another part, and then eventually, as you start making these pieces and parts and they come together, who knows what you're going to end up with.
And that's a good point. One thing I think we always try not to do is just focus on the end goal. You've got to have the little triumphs in there. Seeing some of the stuff that we've been able to put together and seeing Matt demo some of the things we're already doing, that's what keeps you going. That's what inspires you to continue to go on, is you break those chunks off and just, make them manageable and do a little bit at a time. And it may only be, you may only have 2 hours a week. Well, do it. Just, put realistic expectations on yourself and go, okay, I have 2 hours a week. I'm not putting this title out in 6 months.
Exactly. And don't think you can't do it just because of your skill set. It helps a lot to have some experience, but my job is a front-end web developer. So I am not a programming genius. I didn't start programming when I was 10 and, build 3D games by the time I was 12. None of that happened, and so I'm learning, I do have programming in my background and I do program, but, every time I open up Unity, it's a learning experience. And so, don't let that scare you off. There's tons of helpful people. And it's really, once you can get the hang of it, it's not as bad as it seems.
Yeah, and I don't want to misrepresent anything or sound disingenuous. There will be more money we have to spend in the future. Steam doesn't just let you on their marketplace for free. Apple isn't just saying, "Hey, can we have your game now?" There are costs and expenses associated with that. But I just wanted to get across the idea that don't think there is a huge barrier, because probably the biggest barrier is just your own fears.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so, I mentioned at the head of this podcast that we wanted to talk about the development process a little bit from our perspective. Something else that we really wanted to do, and something that this builds towards, is we really wanted to chronicle the history of RavenFist Studio. So we'll have this podcast when we release a game, and in a year from now we can revisit this and be like, man, we were so wrong, or we can be like, yeah, we were pretty close to the target. But my point is that if you like this, if you found this beneficial, reach out to us. Let us know if there are questions you have about game development, about running a studio, anything like that. Send them to us, and we can address those. We would love to know what kind of topics you would like to hear us talk about in regards to game development, and we would be happy to do a podcast about them, maybe a blog post if that's more appropriate, maybe a YouTube video if that makes more sense. So, we're developing this content in tandem with doing game development because we want to have that communal kind of experience, and we want to share this journey, and we want to have this journey recorded and cataloged. So that's kind of what we're thinking here. So we're going to wrap this up today, guys. Thanks so much for your time and your insights and sharing. I
have one more thing to say. If anyone out there has, boatloads of cash that you just really have no idea what to do with it, we would love to do this, 9 to 5. So feel free to throw some of that our way. But anyway, I just, throw that out there.
That's the good tip. Yeah. Thank you for adding that, Matthew.
That was a half joke. It was a half joke.
Yes, indeed. But we're going to wrap this up now. For more content that we've produced, please go to RavenFist.com. You can check out our YouTube channel. It's RavenFist Studios. You can just search for that on YouTube and find it. And search for this podcast. At this point, I have no idea where this podcast is going to live because we're trying to figure that part out. But eventually, it'll be somewhere. And you can search for it and find it. And I'm guessing iTunes is probably a good bet. So anyway, check us out at those places. And if you go to RavenFistStudio.com, you can reach out to us. You can contact us directly, and we're happy to read that information and those questions. And we just want to be part of the conversation. So that's what we're looking for. So
absolutely.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. And until next time.